Before we begin, we publish new content every day. So be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. The breaking point. My name is Emma Johns, and at 65, I thought I'd seen every kind of betrayal life could throw at me. I was wrong. The morning everything changed started like any other Tuesday in Queens. I was tending to my roses on the small rooftop garden of my two-story home. The one I'd worked 30 years to pay off as a high school English teacher. The October air was crisp, carrying the distant sounds of New York's endless symphony of car horns and sirens. My husband Richard had been gone 5 years now, leaving me with memories, a modest pension, and the quiet satisfaction of a life built with honest work. That peace shattered at 9:47 a.m. when David's black SUV screeched to a stop outside my house. My son David, 42 years old, and usually the picture of suburban success, stumbled out looking like he hadn't slept in days. Behind him emerged Serena, his wife of 6 years, dragging 2 oversized Louis Vuitton suitcases. Her platinum blonde hair was perfectly styled as always, her designer outfit pristine, but something in her movements screamed desperation, disguised as entitlement. "Mom, we need to talk," David said, his voice carrying a tremor I hadn't heard since he was 16, and crashed my car. I set down my watering can and studied their faces. Serena was avoiding my eyes, which should have been my first warning. She had a talent for manipulation that I'd watched her perfect over the years, always managing to make David choose between his mother and his wife. She usually won. "What's wrong?" I asked, though my gut already knew the answer would change everything. They followed me into my modest living room, where David collapsed into Richard's old recliner like a defeated man. Serena perched on the edge of my sofa, her manicured fingers drumming against her designer purse. "We sold the house," David blurted out, unable to meet my eyes. The words hit me like a physical blow. "Which house?" I asked, though I knew exactly which house he meant. "Our house. The one on Maple Street." He paused, swallowing hard. "The one you helped us buy. 3 years ago, David and Serena had found their dream home in a nice neighborhood with good schools. They were $40,000 short of the down payment. I'd given them my entire retirement savings without hesitation, secured by a promissory note that made me a co-owner of the property. It was my insurance policy, and more importantly, it was my trust in my son. "That's wonderful news," I said carefully. "Where are you moving to?" The silence that followed was deafening. Serena examined her nails with sudden fascination. David stared at his hands. "We were hoping," David began, then stopped. Started again. "We thought maybe we could stay here for a while. Just until we figure things out." Something cold settled in my stomach. "Figure what out? Where's the money from the sale?" Serena's head snapped up, her eyes flashing with defiance. "I had some expenses. Things I needed to take care of." "What kind of expenses?" The teacher in me recognized evasion when I heard it. "Serena started a boutique," David offered weakly. "It was a business opportunity." "A boutique?" I kept my voice level, professional. "How much did this boutique cost?" Serena stood abruptly, pacing to the window. "I don't see how that's any of your business, Emma. It's our money." "Our money?" The words came out sharper than I intended. "You mean the money that includes my $40,000? The money from selling a house I helped you buy? Your 40,000?" Serena whirled around, her mask finally slipping. "You've been holding that over our heads for 3 years. It was supposed to be a gift." "It was a loan," I said firmly. "With a signed promissory note. Which means when you sold that house, my money should have been returned to me." David finally looked up. "Mom, the boutique needed more investment than we expected. And Serena had some credit card debt." "How much debt?" "80,000, he whispered. The number hung in the air like smoke. I felt something fundamental shift inside me, like a foundation cracking. "And the boutique?" 300,000. Serena said defiantly. It was going to make us rich. I did the math quickly. A house that sold for over $600,000. My $40,000 down payment. $80,000 in credit card debt. $300,000 for a boutique that apparently didn't exist anymore, since they were standing in my living room with suitcases. So you've spent over $600,000, I said slowly. And now you want to live in my house. Just temporarily, David said quickly. Until we get back on our feet. I looked at my son, really looked at him. When had he become this weak, defeated man who let his wife spend them into homelessness? When had I failed so completely as a mother? No, I said quietly. What? Serena's voice was shrill. Number. You cannot stay here. I stood up, my hands surprisingly steady. You stole my retirement money and spent it on your shopping addiction and some fantasy business. You've destroyed your family's financial future. And now you want me to enable you further by giving you free housing? Serena's face contorted with rage. How dare you judge me? You don't understand the pressure I'm under. David doesn't make enough money to support the lifestyle we need. The lifestyle you need? I was amazed by how calm I sounded. You need to spend $300,000 on a boutique? You need $80,000 worth of credit card debt? You wouldn't understand. She spat. You've lived in this dump your whole life, wearing thrift store clothes and driving that piece of junk car. You don't know what it's like to have standards. The words were meant to wound, and they did. But they also clarified something for me. This woman had always looked down on me, on my modest life, on the values that had built the very stability she was now desperate to exploit. Get out, I said quietly. What? Get out of my house, now. Serena moved toward me, her face twisted with fury. You can't throw your own son onto the street. I'm not throwing my son anywhere. I'm removing the cancer that's been destroying his life. That's when she hit me. The slap came so fast I didn't see it coming. The sound echoed through my quiet living room like a gunshot. My cheek burned, but what hurt more was seeing David's face. He looked shocked, but he didn't move. He didn't defend me. He just sat there like a statue while his wife assaulted his mother. Did you just hit me? I asked, my voice deadly calm. Serena stood there breathing hard, her hand still raised, looking almost surprised by what she'd done. But then her chin lifted defiantly. You deserved it. Throwing family out like garbage. I walked to my phone and dialed 911. 911. What's your emergency? I need police at 847 Cedar Avenue in Queens. I've been assaulted, and I have trespassers who refuse to leave my property. Mom, no. David finally found his voice. Don't do this. I ignored him. Yes. I'll hold for the officers. Serena was screaming now, calling me names that would have made my students' parents demand her arrest just for the language. David was pleading, promising things would be different, that they'd pay me back, that Serena was just stressed. But I was done. 65 years old. And I was finally done being everyone's doormat. The police arrived within 10 minutes. Officer Martinez, young and professional, listened to my statement, while Officer Thompson, older and world-weary, dealt with Serena's hysterics. My neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, came over to serve as a witness, confirming she'd seen the assault through her kitchen window. They arrested Serena for assault. As they put her in handcuffs, she screamed at me across the yard. This isn't over, you vindictive old witch. You'll pay for this. David left with her. Not in the police car. But he might as well have. He looked back at me once as he got in his SUV. And I saw something die in his eyes. Whether it was his respect for me or his love for her, I couldn't tell. That night, alone in my house, I made a decision that would have shocked the woman I'd been that morning. I called a locksmith and had every lock changed. Then I called my attorney, James Crawford, and made an appointment for the next day. James listened to my story without interruption, occasionally making notes on his legal pad. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair, and whistled softly. Emma, you have grounds for several lawsuits here. The promissory note makes this pretty clear-cut. They sold property that was partially yours without paying the debt. That's conversion. Possibly fraud. I want them sued for the full amount, plus interest and legal fees, I said. And I want a restraining order against Serena. I can do that. But Emma, are you sure? David is your son. David made his choice when he sat there and watched his wife hit me. The lawsuit hit them 2 weeks later. David called, crying, begging me to drop it. He claimed they couldn't pay the $67,000 I was demanding. You should have thought of that before you let your wife spend our house money on jewelry and spa vacations. I told him. Mom, please. She's pregnant. The words stopped me cold. Pregnant? 3 months. We just found out. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of what this meant. A grandchild I might never know. A grandchild being raised by a woman who'd stolen from me and assaulted me. Congratulations, I said quietly. I hope the baby is healthy. Mom, if you drop the lawsuit, we can work something out. No, David. The lawsuit stands. Your wife assaulted me, and you enabled it. Now you both need to face the consequences. I hung up and cried for the first time since the day it all started. The court case was a disaster for them. James had done his homework, and we had documentation of everything. The promissory note, the sale of the house, Serena's spending sprees, even records of her affair with a married businessman named Marcus Webb, who'd been funding some of her lifestyle. Apparently, the boutique was mostly a front for her to explain where Marcus's money was coming from. When that came out in court, I actually felt sorry for David. His face crumbled as he realized the depth of Serena's betrayal. She'd been cheating on him while spending their money and mine on maintaining a relationship with her lover. The judge awarded me the full amount plus legal fees. Serena was ordered to pay $73,000 within 30 days, or face wage garnishment and asset seizure. But that wasn't the end of it. 2 months after the judgment, Marcus Webb's wife hired a private investigator who uncovered Serena's involvement in a larger fraud scheme. The boutique had been taking money from multiple investors who thought they were funding a legitimate business. The FBI got involved. Serena was arrested on federal fraud charges. David called me the night she was arrested. Mom, they're saying she could go to prison for 15 years. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. The baby. His voice broke. I know. I've been such a fool. Yes, you have. The honesty seemed to help somehow. We both sat in silence on our respective ends of the phone. Can I come see you? He asked finally. Are you going to defend her? Make excuses for her? Tell me this is somehow my fault? I'm done with all that. He came over the next evening, looking 20 years older than when I'd last seen him. We sat in my living room where this had all started, drinking coffee and trying to figure out how to rebuild something from the wreckage. I should have protected you, he said. When she hit you, I should have thrown her out myself. Yes, you should have. I kept thinking if I just kept her happy, if I just gave her what she wanted, she'd eventually settle down and we'd have a normal life. You can't buy someone into loving you, David. And you can't sacrifice your family to appease someone who doesn't respect them. He nodded, tears streaming down his face. I lost everything. The house, my savings, my wife, my self-respect. And I almost lost you too. You didn't lose me. But you came very close. Over the following months, David slowly rebuilt his life. He got a small apartment, found a new job, and started therapy. He began making payments on the judgment, small amounts, but regular ones. More importantly, he began making amends. Serena was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. The baby, my granddaughter Charlotte, was born while Serena was in county jail awaiting sentencing. David was granted full custody, and for the first time since this nightmare began, something good came out of it. When he brought Charlotte to meet me, she was 3 months old, perfect and innocent, and completely unaware of the chaos that had surrounded her birth. As I held her, I realized that sometimes the worst betrayals lead to the greatest gifts. She looks like you did as a baby, I told David. I hope she's stronger than I was, he replied. She will be. We'll make sure of it. A year later, I made the decision to sell my house in Queens. The memories had become too heavy, and I was ready for a fresh start. I moved to a small town in Vermont, where I bought a cottage with a real garden and joined the local library as a volunteer literacy teacher. David visits every few months with Charlotte, who's walking now and calls me Nana. She has David's eyes and Richard's stubborn chin, and when she laughs, I can almost forget the pain that brought her into our lives. Serena will be released when Charlotte is 9 years old. I don't know what that will mean for our family, but I do know that I'm no longer afraid of her or anyone like her. I learned something important at 65 that I wish I'd known at 25. You teach people how to treat you by what you're willing to accept. I spent most of my life accepting less than I deserved, making excuses for people who didn't respect me, and sacrificing my own peace for the comfort of others. It took losing everything I thought mattered to realize what actually did. Some people might say I was too harsh, that I destroyed my son's marriage and separated a family. Those people have never been stolen from, assaulted, and abandoned by the people they trusted most. They don't understand that sometimes love means setting boundaries so firm they feel like walls. The roses in my Vermont garden are blooming now, stronger and more beautiful than the ones I left behind in Queens. Like me, they needed to be transplanted to truly thrive. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to refuse to accept less than you deserve, even when that refusal costs you everything you thought you wanted. My name is Emma Johns. I am 67 years old, and I am nobody's victim anymore. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, drop a like and a comment, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on our new content.